be the main system for fighting games, or should we stay on consoles? When it comes to tournaments and stuff like that, we know we more so stay with consoles and stuff like that because I just feels like it's easier for the tournament organizers to not have to worry about like a bunch of different computers up the plug-in just messed up on this. You got to restart just, and it can be a problem where the computer just like I just want to be restarted. Just restart me. I guess it's just a lot of stuff to worry about with PCs. But when it comes to like consumer, it seemed like for a while a lot of people was just saying like, man, we need to play on PC. We need to play on PC. The whole PC master race thing. So with fighting games, do you feel like it should be something that like it's a better experience? People should be playing them more on fighting games, or do you feel like there's benefits to staying with consoles? So starting with you, Mr. Game and Live, how do you feel about this?
Well, my opinion on this is, well, absolutely, we should switch over to PC. PC Master Race for life. If you don't own a PC that can play stuff, that's your fault. Since I have switched over to a PC now that's decent, I feel that I've ascended to a higher echelon of existence, and it's just, it's what it is. If you don't have one, that's just on you. I can play my games now with 100,000 frames per second. If you can't, well, tough luck. It's just, why would you not want to play games at the highest quality that you possibly can? Why would I want to play Dragon Ball on a PlayStation 4, that archaic piece of hardware, or PS5? Like, I mean, nobody has one, so like I would rather play it. I have mods, I can do all that. I'm just playing. But nah, it's seriously no. It just the logistics don't make sense. It's just too much going on. Um, One of the things about PC, the thing with console, it just makes it so easy. They're usually cheaper. Um, and on side of that, some decent PCs are actually fairly priced. Like you can find some PCs that can run some like most games like $500 to $800. Like so that's not too bad. Even a little lower, they have like little gigabyte things. I think are pretty decent. Um, but the only thing about it is the user accessibility. Like you got like, and let's say if you're building a PC, that's even harder. That's an extra step. Um, Also, transportability, like it's a lot easier for a console, unless you get everything on a laptop or something. But the big rigs, I mean, they're fairly sized. They're like not the biggest in the world, but it's a rig is much bigger than a console, so that's just by default. But one of my examples, I bought Killer Instinct, one of the first fighting games I had on my PC, and it would not work. I just spent $40 and it just wouldn't work. I was like,
Oof.
so imagine being somewhere at a tournament like you bought it. Oh well, oh yeah, we already got KI on the system. Yeah, I bought it, just started up, and it's like not today. And you just like okay, and then all of a sudden, like a few weeks later, it started working. I'm like, all right. And then a few weeks later, it stopped working again. It hasn't worked since. I'm like, bruh, like so. It's just like it's just like one of, even like like, and it could be the smallest thing. Like oh, you got on some some LED lights. That are on, so it won't work. Like, what do my lights have to do with the game? Like, so it's a lot of different things that with PC it's just like a hassle. Now, I mean, playing on it is it's good. It's fun or whatever. Some people out there they love their frames per second. They love all this different stuff in the mods, but just realistically, I don't think that PC should be the standard just because of the fact that the user accessibility is so much easier to just to download a game or buy a game and put it on the system. Normally with consoles, you don't have those issues of I installed the game and now it won't turn on, it won't work. Usually, I think not like at least probably I would say 98% of the time you buy a game for a console, you put it in, it works. So yeah, I don't think that this is gonna ever be the. I mean, unless something changes, and also like I said, the price. So, I mean, a lot of times, if you want to get something that's a little higher end, you want to handle all the games, you might have to, spend at least 1,000. Some of these rigs are getting expensive. The parts are getting expensive depending on what you want. Like with the 380s, a while ago they were like $1,500. So that's my whole PC cost $1,500. So just for the graphics card alone. So depending on what you want, it's going to be pricey. What?
I
Nah,
said
man.
big baller.
That, that ain't problem. Some man. Some of these folks, some PCs out here probably like 5 to 10K. I've seen some insane rigs. I'm just like, that's just So yeah, I don't think it's going to become the standard. Transportability, user accessibility, all these different settings you might. Um, VSync, all that different stuff you might have to turn off to make the game run smoother or whatever. Like they have all those different settings on PC. On console, this all that's kind of like standardized. It's just like brightness and gamma or whatever. But when you go PC, it's like VSync, anti-aliasing, grandma's biscuits, a cup of butter, a tablespoon of syrup. It's like all these different filters and like sliders. So it's just like it's just a lot more concise and a lot more digestible on console. I mean, something could change, but I just don't see that becoming a standard. I mean, like I don't see going into a fighting game tournament and just seeing a bunch of rigs set up. You might have a few rigs set up here and there for a few games. Maybe like some games that only run on PC, like Melted Blood or whatever. But half the time you see those people on just a regular laptop. They just be in the corner, so you don't even some games you don't even eat something so extensive. Um, and like I said, for shooting games and stuff like that, and other games like the mobiles and stuff, that's obviously because that's what those they're played on. So you have to. But when it comes to fighting games, I just don't see that being a standard.
So before we even started the show, I kind of touched on this. This is an issue I've thought about for a while, and I think at this point in time, there's just no point in PC being the standard for fighting games. Because back in the day, it used to be, not even back in the day, let's go back to last generation. Last generation, there were PCs almost undoubtedly were the best way to play a fighting game. By the way, PC Master Race, okay. I also subscribe to that to the PC. No, I'm playing. I like having a PC, but at the same time, you've got to see exactly. Oh man, Devin, do that again. Do that again. Do that again. Like show us what you got there, bro. Like, look, do it again. There we go. But yeah, I believe that last generation it was almost I would say you couldn't even contend that PC wasn't better than consoles. But this generation, with the advent of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, things have kind of changed a little bit. So first off, there are smaller PC builds that are pretty good. I remember MSI. I remember specifically a few years ago, there was this one lady that I used to play Final Fantasy 14 with, that she had a PC that basically looked like a PlayStation 4. It was like a miniature build that looked almost like it was a PlayStation 4. But the thing about that is that in order to get a build like that, you got to pay a lot of money. You got to put down those ducats. Like Devin said, you got to put down the money to even get that in the first place. So if you're somebody who wants to play games, if your only aim is to play video games and that's it, then your best bet is to just get a console. And in this case, there's no point, especially right now, because the consoles are so powerful right now. They're literally right there, almost neck and neck. I'm not saying they're exactly there, but they're pretty close to being as good as PCs, especially now that they've got solid state drives in them. Like they're using solid state drives, which decreases the amount of time that you spend loading. I mean, and I know a lot of people hate that. They hate that. If you've ever loaded a fighting game on PlayStation 4 or God help you, Xbox, then you know that the load times can be abysmal. And you're sitting there waiting for the amount of time that it takes you to wait for a match. Somebody else on PC has already played 2 matches, at least. So you're getting to that point where you're sitting there just waiting and waiting and waiting for a match to start. Oh man, what am I gonna do? Now you gotta go read a book. You might make yourself something to eat, go make a sandwich. You might want to drive down the street and go get a Slurpee from 7-Eleven or something like that, because honestly, you're gonna be waiting there for a while. And who could blame you, right? You just want to play the game. You bought a console to play the game. That was last generation though. This generation, we got consoles that load that stuff like that. And it's a new age. The future is now, old man. The future is now. And you have to acknowledge that consoles have come such a long way that they're legitimate, in my opinion, legitimate competitors with PCs on whether or not the speed of the loading. And and since they're all pretty good at being like the carrying and everything like that, like you can just put them in your bag, you can put them in. All you really need to have is the console, the cable, the power cable, an HDMI, and a screen. That's it. That's all you really need. And they don't take as much space as a PC, as far as I know. Like I said, there are micro builds, but generally speaking, the builds are in tower builds, and it's just better at this point to just stick to using consoles for carrying. I think people I've gotten like controllers are getting to the point where they're pretty adaptable to most consoles. Like for instance, Hitbox straight out the box is, uh, at least if I remember correctly, when I was using it, it didn't work with Xbox, which is kind of messed up, but it did work with PC and PlayStation 4. So there are other new controllers coming out. They're doing software updates, so the Hitbox is available to be used with other consoles as well. So it's there's no downside to using all these different controllers like the sticks and the fight pads and the hitboxes. So there's really no point in trying to bring in PC right now, especially when number one, consoles are cheaper. They're definitely way cheaper than buying a PC. It's always been like that, and it's probably going to be like that for a very long time. Consoles are plug and play. You plug everything up and you play the game. And that's what you want, especially at tournaments. You don't want to have to go through all this extra rigmarole. You just want to be able to put the console down, plug it in, connect your controller however you connect it, and then start playing the match against your person. And then win or lose, you go on to your next match. So in order to keep things, I think, close, because basically what we're going through now is if we're using these modern consoles, it's just a faster version of last generation. It's more, me and one of my buddies were talking about this. It's more about load times than anything, because everything kind of visually is kind of keeping up. They're around the same level. So now it's load time, load time, load time. How much downtime is there between one event and the next? So I think PC is cool, but I don't, at this rate, it just doesn't seem likely that PC will be the standard for fighting games.
Let's set the stage, shall we? We're at Evo. It's come back. We're in 2026 or whenever we'll be back. You know, we're at grand finals. Street Fighter 6. Punk the Gods is about to go up against Taquito in the once in a lifetime matchup. Everybody comes up, they didn't set up grand finals and everything. Everybody's plugging in their controllers, and we're starting up Street Fighter. And you just get this random error message that says can't play game, code XWMYK element of P. And it's just like, what is this? What's happening? And everybody's looking like, I've never seen this before. What is this? The next thing you know, you got to call the Geek Squad to come in, and they run in with their little suitcase, and they go to the computer. They're digging into the settings, and then deep down up in the control panel, you didn't flip the switch where the computer asked you, "Did you have bacon for breakfast this morning?" And you forgot to click yes or no, and now your game won't work because you didn't do some random setting. You didn't tell the computer you had bacon and eggs this morning. So, like, we know this stuff happen with PCs all the time. Like, you could legit be editing something, like just do, and then next thing you know, your computer just flips out, just out, like it's just I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. Like, export the project. No, I ain't doing it. And it's like, what? So you're sitting here, you're on Google trying to figure everything out in the world. Like, what is this? What's happening? Why is my PC doing this? And other people are just like, did you tell it that you had bacon and eggs this morning? You go do that, and then next thing you know, it's still not working. And you're just like, you know what, bump it. Let me restart the computer. You restart it, it exports it like it was some grumpy child that just needed to take a nap or something. So it's just like this stuff happens all the time with PC. So when it comes to competition, I just don't like see it in fighting games. It happening. You like it's like Evan said, you just don't want them problems, man. Like some days, PC, like it's like we say with technology, it works until you want it to work. you
Yeah.
know, and it's just like some random out of the blue, like your computer throwing a temper tantrum stuff. Like I just don't get it, you know. But technology. So, but when it comes to consuming, the question when it comes to like consumers, businesses always have to ask themselves is how easy is it for my customer base to consume my product? Like, how easy is it for you to consume what I'm trying to give to you? And when it comes to PC, like, it's harder for you to consume gaming than it is like on the PlayStation. Like, let's just say it's all the same systems. It's on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. It's the access to playing the games on PC is harder than it is the system. The systems are
Hmm.
cheaper, they're easier to come. Like, could you imagine, like, I know people who buy PC rigs for their kids and stuff like that, but I could just imagine, like, when kids have problems with PCs, like, they don't know what to do. Like, they just, it's not like you're buying them like a PS4 or PS5. Like, I can't say there's ever been a time where I was playing a console where the console just wouldn't play my game unless it was just something wrong with the disc. Like, I messed up the disc. Like, it was just like, if you plugged in, like, if you put in your disc into a system and it didn't work, it was just almost like a phenomenon. Like, what the world is this? Like, nothing I've ever heard of. But if it happens on a PC, it's just a Tuesday. So, I just don't really see it becoming like, because it's just hard to get into. It's not as easy to consume. I mean, it's not much to say. Like, these gentlemen have really like broke it down way better than I can. But I just agree with their sentiments. It's just too. And I'm not saying PC doesn't have any benefits, like Evan was saying, and the systems before, like, you was getting a better experience with the PC than you was with the consoles. So I'm not saying that PCs are bad, but I'm just saying, like, it's not as easy to get into them, to access them, and then even when you do, there's so many things that can kind of get in your way with, like, enjoying your experience with the game. So I just don't really see it like we're ever getting rid of consoles and stuff like that, because PCs are just, they're so complex. They're really, really complex. So make sure you always tell your computer what you had for breakfast this morning. So anybody else have anything to add?